I want to refer now to the special meaning behind gold from the esoteric point of view. Gold has fascinated mankind through the ages, not only because it is a material that is heavy, condensed, and enduring, and non-reactive to corrosion, but because of its glow. When you are confronted with a golden piece, a plate or something like that, the goldness reflects onto things around it. And through the ages, it has produced some extraordinary projects in mankind. South Africa produced more gold in the last 100, 200 years than anywhere known on Earth. It is said that the amount of gold extracted from the South African Witwatersrand mines is equivalent to a golden ball 60 feet in diameter. 60 feet, that's what, about 6 stories high? Imagine a golden ball 6 stories high, completely englobed. But of course, in history, we have records of people going berserk, wanting to use gold or to obtain it. We have the whole brood of alchemists. And whilst we hesitate to say that the alchemists did discover a method for converting gold into more gold through the transmutation of base metals into gold and silver, that despite this, there were also people who went crazy looking for it. We have the stories of the miners, the 49ers, who went to California to mine gold there, and of course in north of that place in Alaska as well. The gold in South Africa produced, in my opinion, historically, what is called the Jameson Raid, when foolhardy would-be militarists suddenly ran riot in South Africa and eventually caused the Boer War to occur. But then there was the conquistadors of Central America, and all these had this gold lust in them. Perhaps the earliest reference to the attraction of gold is from the pharaoh Akhenaten's reign. Akhenaten suddenly changed from the worship of animal-like idols into an appraisal of the sun and the disk of the sun. And he thought that the golden sunlight that was emitted by the disk of the sun had a special effect on the earth. And of course he was right. He knew nothing about photosynthesis, but the truth is that grass grows through the interaction of sunlight on pigments, photosynthesis. All flesh is grass, we say to this day. Akhenaten considered that there was something mystical about gold and the fact that there was a higher being, a monotheistic religion based on the understanding of a higher being or logos behind the disk of the sun. If you have gold, you have to hide it. And the gold that the lamas in the Chinese lamasery had was the gold of the secret flower. And this gold in particular had to be hidden. You do not cast your pearls before swine. And in the esoteric, we know this is important too. But in the esoteric, Madame Blavatsky and C.W. Leadbeater and Besant and many others hid many of the truths that they considered to be dangerous behind what were called blinds. And one of the great blinds that we know today was created specifically to hide important truths was that teaching of Leadbeater's, which put all the onus on the spleen chakra, the spleen being an organ about the size of your fist, hiding under the rib cage just about there. And he implied that the energy that came from the sun and passed through the spleen chakra was the prime cause of people's vitality. We know that the good Reverend Leadbeater was hiding the fact that it is the sacral center, the six-petaled lotus, related to the reproductive organs, the organs of the male being outside the body and the organs of the female being inside the body. He was hiding the fact that these energies related to the gonads, the sacral center, were the most important for generating energies. And so he hid this knowledge pretty obviously, if you are an esoteric person. He hid it behind the mask of the spleen chakra, when in fact it was related to sacral energies. The lamas in the Chinese monastery, from which this book originates, The Secret of the Golden Flower, were a community of monks who were abstemious and chaste. They did not practice sexuality in any shape or form. The reason for it is that where there is sexuality deriving from the love nature, 60% of the energies available to man can be absorbed in the process of love-making. And it is a great barrier to the whole process of grasping the secret of the golden flower. Let us just remind you that there is a higher self, which is symbolized by an upright triangle or higher triad, and there is the lower self, which is related to the personality. And in the process of spiritual unfoldment, we take the mental body, which is this here, let's call it the mental body. This is the astral body, and this is the physical body. The three together make up the personality. The higher triad is made up of Atma, Buddhi, and Manas, higher Manas, or abstract thought. The process of spiritual growth means that in the disciplines of discipleship, you must take your lower Manas, your mental nature, and somehow construct an antakarana, or bridge, between your lower or your personality, your lower self, and the higher self. And eventually this bridge is established mainly through the process of what we call meditation. But there are other factors that can produce it as well. The next stage is that as you establish the antakarana, the qualities of Atma are drawn down in through the antakarana to flood the personality, especially the physical body related to Atma. The energies of Buddhi are also drawn down through the Antakarana or bridgehead into the personality, and they can express themselves in the emotional nature, which is the astral body. What is in fact being done here is to reconstruct the personality. The personality is reconstructed not merely from outside experience, but is being reconstructed through support by the higher self or the soul. And we call that psychosynthesis. Psychosynthesis, the putting together of the personality based on considerations which are related to the higher triad. And so in any process like that related to the secret of the golden flower must in some way or the other come back to this proposition, this basic theosophical proposition of a higher triad and a lower triad or personality, and the building of a bridge or an antakarana between the lower and the higher self. And in meditation, this has helped, and in meditation, the energies of the higher triad are drawn down into the personality, and the personality is reconstructed. Psychosynthesis is a process in which you clip off, in which poor habits and so on are overcome. And this enables the higher energies to flow down into the personality in what we call psychosynthesis. But then the second factor here is that we ourselves in meditation can act positively and feed the higher self. And this is what I've been talking about this morning, that we can assist in the growth of the soul. The soul disseminates in silence. The soul appreciates truth, beauty, and goodness. And if we employ these in our personality life, then the soul will disseminate, it will grow. So there's an interplay between the two. So in the process of the receiving of the energies of the golden flower, the building of the antakarana, number one, the receiving of the input of the higher self, number two, and number three, reorientation, so that in meditation the soul may be disseminated. Straightforward. Now, if you can visualize these processes, then of course they come to you. I'm constantly saying that the advent of television implies that man will become universally clairvoyant eventually. Why? Because the very fact that you can see things, even if it's in a newsreel, at a distance, if you can see things at a distance, assisted with the mechanism of an instrument, nevertheless, your consciousness is seeing things at a distance, and it implies the laying down of basic foundations for what is to be clairvoyance in the future. And so we begin to think about the possibility of the future for us based on what we have known of the past. One of the things that we say is that man incubates his soul. You know what incubation is? You take eggs and you incubate them. You apply a steady warmth to the eggs, and they are incubated, and the embryos within the eggs, if they are fertile, and that's an important observation, the embryos begin to grow. and the egg eventually hatches. One of the ways in which we incubate the soul is through study. Studying the esoteric classics, learning the bread and butter factors about our nature, what constitutes our inner selves. It's a wonderful image, this image of the egg. The egg as being a structure that is incubated. And so you and I know that there is a snake portrayed incubating the egg of humanity. And we say that there are rounds in which the snake eventually is able to incubate the consciousness of humanity, and we say it's in terms of rounds. A round is a flow of consciousness which goes through the process of descending into denser and denser forms and then emerging from them with what it has gained. And so there are 7 rounds in a world period, and we have also the extraordinary observation, highly relevant to us today, the observation that within each round there are root races, 7 root races to each round. And we are in the process of developing the 5th root race on the earth. It's called, by Leadbeater, for want of a better expression, it's called the Anglo-Saxon race, the 5th root race. But the importance today of the 5th root race is not so much the establishment of its qualities in humanity, but the establishment rather of a new facet of expression in some of the 5th root race, the Anglo-Saxon root race. And this relates to what we call the heart chakra, not the spleen chakra, but the heart chakra, which is called Anahata. Anahata, the yoga heart center, and we say that it is related to a power that we're all developing, which is called the intuition. And the intuition is very strongly related to the descent of energies from the higher self into the personality. Now you know what intuition manifests as. It manifests in quite a few of us today. It occurs, a flash of energy, a sudden input of energy comes into the personality from on high when certain factors concerned with truth coincide. In our ordinary everyday lives it can happen, and when certain factors come together forming a synchronicity of truth or beauty or goodness, we have a flash of intuition, a descent of energy from the higher triad, a thrill, a blinding reality that comes from the plane of Buddhi, and we call it intuition. And it is said that some of us will develop the intuition to such an extent that it will be possible for it to be passed on to the future elements of the 6th subrace of the 5th root race. At the moment we are the 5th subrace of the 5th root race. Hence the enormous turmoil and the extraordinary alliance which I forecast 30 years ago. The extraordinary alliance that will be maintained between America and the United Kingdom, based, according to Bailey and to others, on a common soul, that the United States and the United Kingdom have a common soul, different personalities, different forms, physical structures, and so on. But they share a common soul. And it is partly the cause of the situation today, which we find ourselves in politically, and we should never forget this. And so we are, as it were, blending the qualities of the fifth and sixth race, root races, in order for it to be born. Intuitive ability is dependent on the heart chakra, and so is the secret of the golden flower. It is dependent on two things. In us today, we need to open the Ajna center, which requires an act of concentration, and we need to open the heart chakra simultaneously, which is the chakra related to heart qualities, platonic love, if you like, and I'm going to give you a handout shortly so don't worry about writing notes down, to illustrate what these heart qualities are. Important to the subject today because they are essentially the handout, and it is the one, qualities of Buddhi. What are these qualities that are going to be developed by us, which takes into account concentration as well as the qualities of the heart? There is the quality of compassion. Quality of compassion. Thank you. The quality of compassion. I know of nothing in English literature that can compare with Portia's speech in the Shakespearean play The Merchant of Venice, where Portia describes the quality of mercy. And the ability to generate mercy, to grant mercy, is strongest in the most powerful. If you are a weak person, giving mercy is nothing. But if you are a powerful person that need not depend on anybody, and you still grant mercy, that is indeed a very wonderful thing. My dramatic input is being murdered by the handout of the... So look at your list that's been given you, and number one on the list is compassion. We're not going to do them all, just one or two. Compassion. I should think also empathy. Asojoli and the modern psychologists think a lot about empathy. The ability to put yourself in the position of the one in front of you who is suffering. If you are a doctor, the ability to have empathy with your patient. If you are a psychologist, empathy with the prisoner in front of you who is in serious criminal difficulties. Empathy, compassion. Can I just read a few lines from Portia's observation on mercy? The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the place beneath. It is twice blessed. It blesseth him that gives and him that takes. 'Tis mightiest in the mightiest. It becomes the throned monarch better than his crown. His scepter shows the force of temporal power, the attribute to awe and majesty, wherein doth sit the dread and fear of kings. But mercy is above the sceptral sway. It is enthroned in the heart of kings. It is an attribute to God himself. And earthly power does then show, like God's, when mercy seasons justice. Mercy seasons justice. And when people say, what can I ponder on? What can I brood on? What can I contemplate? Poetry helps enormously. And you may not be able to conjure up compassion. Sometimes when you are beginning to receive the input of Buddhi, you know what it's like. There's sometimes you have to switch the damn television off. It hurts when things are occurring in different parts of the world. And mercy is so important today. Intuition, I've talked about, that's number 2. Harmlessness. I have great difficulty in teaching people how to practice harmlessness. It seems so obvious. It's obvious that you just don't gossip and cause pain in that way. Harmlessness in thought, word, and deed. Harmlessness in thought, word, and deed. And when you're gardening, of course, harmlessness is uppermost in your thoughts. You collect a tin full of snails which have been eating the buds, the rose buds, and you don't know what to do with them if you're practicing harmlessness. And so you pop them over the fence into your neighbor's garden. And of course we're living at a time now where war is on our doorstep and we don't know how to deal with this matter of harmlessness. I'm going to read you a little story which brings out the difficulties involved in inclusiveness. You know what we mean by inclusiveness? By inclusiveness we mean don't shut anybody out. Don't, for any reason whatever, bar people from your compassion and your mercy and so on. And if I may just read this little story to you, I'm sure you will appreciate it. An old woman who had been mean and grouchy throughout her life finally passed through the gate of death. She found herself, as one might expect, in a very unpleasant place. It was always excessively hot, and she was forced by demons to do all kinds of disagreeable work. This was, of course, not to her liking, but there wasn't much she could do about it. On earth she could have written to her congressman or lodged a complaint in court, but such methods were not applicable in the overheated inferno of hell. Finally she appealed, of all places, to heaven. Day after day she prayed for the right to emigrate and to get out of her misery. After a time her plea was heard, and a resplendent angel appeared at the place where heaven and hell abut each other. The angel was sympathetic, but not very encouraging. "Your record doesn't do you much credit," he said, "and we can't arbitrarily make exceptions. Search your memory. Search your memory and see whether you can remember doing a single good deed while you lived on earth. If you can find one, we may perhaps be able to help you." The old lady brooded a long time, trying to remember performing at least one good deed. After a time she recollected that she had once in her earthly life given a carrot to a person who begged for alms. She invoked the angel and told him the good news. "Yes," the angel told her, "that good deed might make a difference." He vanished from sight, but a short time later reappeared holding a carrot in his hand. He said, "Take hold of the root of this carrot, and I shall pull you up to heaven with it." The old lady grasped it tightly and found herself being lifted off the ground. when the other denizens of hell saw what was happening, they also took hold of the carrot in the hope that they could escape from their prison in like manner. The added pressure on the carrot threatened to break it. The old lady became fearful that it would be unable to stand the strain. "Get away," she cried angrily. "This carrot belongs to me." At this moment the angel let go, and the old lady fell back with a thud into the infernal regions. "If the carrot belongs to you," the angel declared, "then you didn't give it away after all." And so she remains there to this day. Inclusiveness. Sometimes little stories, vignettes, can be very helpful to remind us when we're not prepared to share the carrot with others, helping them to come out of the hell state. I believe quite sincerely, after 40 or 50 years of theosophy, that heaven is a place which can be heaven for some people, especially Aborigines and tribal states. I've seen them in Australia. A whole family come into the mall, a shopping mall, which is cooled beautifully, air-conditioned, and I've seen them squat in a corner on sharing a seat and enjoying this as a very, very rare treat, being in this shopping mall. Everything with color and goodies to be bought and so on, and the older ones sipping quietly at their beers and so on. But then, of course, that may be their heaven, and we should recognize that. It's nonsense, to say that we're all born equal. It's nothing to do with race at all. It's not true that we are all born equal. We are different in the age of our souls. How many lives we have spent on earth. A person who has spent many lives on earth and has accepted the challenges of his karma is a person who is much more developed than somebody who has rushed through his lives and not done very much in the way of bringing talents home to the Father's house. And so you have a list in front of you of the qualities that you should ponder on, that you can bring down from the heaven states, or if you like, from the higher triad. If you are a person that is a highly spiritually developed soul, you will have no difficulty with those headings that I've given you. Or you may have to work on this one or that one in its proper place. Your life, provided by your karma, your life will give you opportunities for some of those soul qualities to be developed. Now the matter of the golden flower, the matter of the golden flower. They had to be so careful with the way in which they presented this extraordinary quality, this quality that humanity could be endowed with. It's related to the human eyes. Related to the human eyes. The book says, just as the sun pours out its energy towards its planets and its earth, so humanity pours out energy from its eyes. Madame Blavatsky said there was something about the human eyes. They could pour out things that were virtually evil, the evil eye it is called, or they could be uplifted to bring out some very special qualities, very special qualities indeed. All of us know what it's like to be confronted with somebody with shining eyes, somebody who is, as I've said earlier, filled with joie de vivre, especially the young child who has not had it knocked out of him by education and confrontation with material temptations, but is still relying upon his own inner sponsoring, as it were. So we say that something pours out of the human eyes. That's not a ridiculous observation. After all, if you look into the human eyes carefully, you will see part of the brain there. It's the only part of the brain that can be seen from the outside world, called the optic nerve. And at the back of the eye there is the optic nerve, and it radiates the energies of the brain. But this idea that there's something that can pour out from the eyes of a teacher, so that when he teaches live, he can teach as he's never able to teach in any other way, or from the healer, or there are people that can give a loving glance to somebody that they have a rapport with, and the person instantly registers it. Now, the people who have got the manifestation of the secret, and I'm teaching from the book now, people who have this extraordinary ability to convey something with the eyes are the people who have subscribed to disciplines in previous lives and are themselves in this life involved in treading the middle way, living the meditative way of life. And one of the sacrifices is the sacrifice of losing the energy. The book says in a downward path, and by that it refers to the kidney, but it's a blind. The male testes and the female ovary come from the pronephros, the primitive part of the human kidney. And in the case of the testes, a fibrous cord called the gubernaculum draws the testes off the kidneys and takes it down through the abdomen and passes it out into the scrotum, where it lies in contact with the outer world. And this path is called, in The Secret of the Golden Flower, it is called the downward path, the downward and outward path of the energies of the golden flower. And it is this downward outer path that enables children to be created. They put it in a nice way. After all, they were all monks in this lamasery, and they had to deal with the subject very, very quietly and carefully. But they said there was a second way, and the second way was very important for the golden flower to manifest itself. And the second way was to draw the invisible part of that which is lost in the outer downward thrust. The invisible part needed to be drawn upwards. And they described that in great detail. And they said that if it was possible, it should occur at the moment of climax. You're not children, so I can mention the word orgasm. At the moment when ejaculation in the male would occur but doesn't, or is held back, the moment of climax, is the time to redirect your thoughts away from that stimulus, that experience, and place your attention in the space between the eyebrows. It is supremely difficult and needs these long periods of chastity or celibacy in the case of outside males outside the establishment. And of course it's the basis of the problems of the Catholic Church today. The Roman Catholic Church, as you know, is still struggling with the problem of the priest, whether the priest is allowed to marry, whether he is allowed to abandon his celibacy, whether he may, by doing this, still play an efficient role in the nature of his self-discipline. The idea being, of course, that if he observes self-discipline to the extent of abstinence, then he will have the energies to transfer inwardly up to the space between the eyebrows. The space between the eyebrows is called the sacred square inch. The sacred square inch between the eyebrows. And if you could get the next sheets ready. The sacred square inch between the eyebrows. Many people have great difficulty in clearing this space. Some people say to me, the moment I sit down to meditate, things go haywire in me. All kinds of things flow through my consciousness. Well, there are ways of overcoming that. And they are highly related to this subject of the secret of the golden flower. The essence of yoga, and yoga is another form of what the secret of the golden flower is talking about. The essence of yoga, of course, is what we call sublimation. Sublimation. Sublimation in yoga means taking through a very well-known process, taking yourself through the raising of energies from one chakra to a higher chakra. That's what we call sublimation. In psychology, it means taking something that is not really acceptable and lifting it to something that is socially acceptable. That's the psychological expression. But in the esoteric, we mean that taking the energy from the sacral center, the center related to the gonads, and remember that the male gonads are outside the body and they are lower in position than the female. The female gonads are related to the ovaries and they are inside the body. And in yoga we say you take the energies of the sacral center and lift them to the throat. And the throat is the center of manas. It is the center of linear thought. It's the center which is responsible for our being able to be active throughout the day. We create 12,500 thoughts every day. And if the mind is lambasting consciousness with 12,500 thoughts a day, it hasn't got much opportunity to allow the higher self to have a word. And these are basic factors. And so the essence of yoga, the ability to yoke yourself to the infinite, The essence of it is sublimation, taking the energy of the sacral center to the throat. I could only speak for men here today. I have great difficulty in extracting information from women on this particular subject. That they have orgasm, I have no doubt. They all proclaim that, or most of them proclaim that. But what they do about ejaculation, I don't know. There seems to be controversy between them as to whether there is ejaculation or not. And without that, I can not really come to the conclusions that are so easy with the male. The male, of course, has very strong sensory organs, which are not so much confounded by the emotions. Women are positive astrally. Their astral bodies are positive, and their physical bodies are negative. Whereas men have positive physical bodies and negative astral bodies. And therefore, their path of sublimation is often very different. This extraordinary matter of lifting the energies, not just of the sacral center to the throat, but also of lifting the energies of the solar plexus to the heart, from the solar plexus chakra, which is the open sesame to the astral world. The astral world's energies flow into the personality structure through, all right, if Freud called it the id and its libido, that's all right. But we say there is an energy that flows in to the emotional nature through the solar plexus chakra. And it is an attaching love. I will love you if you love me back. And if you don't love me back, I'll punish you for it. Whereas the heart center says, I will love you no matter how gross you are or may become, I will still love you. No matter how you may hurt me, I will still love you. And of course that conveys very important mechanisms. When women come to me with problems, spiritual, I won't talk about personality problems, but if personality problems arise, and she says, I can't go on with my marriage, it disgusts me. What can I do? The answer to that is, give more love, but let the love be heart chakra love. You've got the list in front of you. Heart chakra. Show more compassion. Show more understanding, so that he says, well, all right, the other is not available, but really there's some nice things. And more than anything, I say to women who are placed in that position, do your thing. Whatever it is that you are able to do, that you are good at, do it. And you will find that respect will return to your partner if you do your thing. No matter how weird it is, no matter how misunderstood it is, do the thing that you do best, and you will re-engage through your heart center, you will re-engage the affection of the partner who is a problem to you at the moment. And so, sublimation of attaching love, which is the solar plexus chakra. I love you so much that you've got to be mine. You are part of me. And I'm not going to shift from that. crime passionnel occurs on that basis. And then you practice in your daily life the elements that I have given to you as a list, and you will find that there will be a flow of buddhi which will make your heart qualities quiver and grow. And the exercising of the will come if you can use your will to curb some of your appetites, some of your attachments. That's what psychosynthesis is all about. Stop allowing your energies to be wasted, and you will find they will flow up to the eyes. And these people have extraordinary capacities who have got the secret of the golden flower. They will catch the gaze of someone in the street, and the person will falter at that moment. And it doesn't matter if nothing else happens, but that person has changed for the rest of that life, if not for all time. Because somebody with the secret of the golden flower has passed out through his eyes a communication with someone who is eligible for an opening up. And so we say, solar plexus to the heart. And if you have a heart chakra and you are a heart type, a loving nature, and I mean a higher love, the platonic love that I've listed there, if you have that, it's not enough still. You must then pass the energy of the heart center to the brow. The brow requires the opposite disciplines. The brow requires concentration. I'll deal with this after lunch. How to open the brow chakra so that it will receive by sublimation the energy of the heart center to go to the brow. Because that's the destiny of the fifth root race, ultimately, is to be able to draw energies from other chakras into the brow. And then there is, of course, the base of the spine chakra. Psychology is beginning to look into the matter of sexuality today, beginning to look into this matter that is consuming so many people on the earth and absorbing their full attention, and is beginning to find out strange things. One of the things that is found out is that the brain itself is a sexual organ. The brain itself, the center of consciousness, is a sexual organ. And only when this is understood and taken into account, an assessment, a true assessment of a person's nature can be dealt with. Some people have no difficulty with that. Some people, for all their good intentions, are unable to operate sexually on the surface of the brain. They have to operate in the region of the sacral center itself. Our root race cannot stand excessive sexual stimulation. And two of the things that show up in men who will persist in draining all their energies from chakras below the diaphragm is heart disease. Cardiac insufficiency, it's called in nice terms. Energies are not getting to the heart center because the solar plexus center, the sacral center, and the base of the spine chakra are, the three of them together, pouring out energies to maintain the sexual drive, depriving the higher centers of their nutrients, their spiritual nutrients, as it were, or I should say their quantum nutrients. So this is what we mean by sublimation. The other thing that men are suffering from in our root race is prostate cancer. Prostate cancer. Very typical in men who maintain their sexual drive into vast old age and expect more from a center which should by then have shut down and allowed all the energies available for activity to go to the throat. There's also part of the mystery here of castration of boys of 13 and 14 before their voices break. It's part of the old system of maintaining is it contralto? What is the high voice? Say it. It's an interesting matter there. And many boys of that age deprive the throat center so much of the energies it should be getting from the sacral center that the throat is inhibited and will suffer from a blood disorder like one of the cocci. What do you call one of the hemolytic disorders?
Leukemia?
No. Streptococcus. Sorry, streptococcus. Getting old. Streptococcal infections affecting boys who have difficulty dealing with the sacral center, and so that nothing is getting through to the throat chakra. And women sometimes suffer if they cannot lift energies above the diaphragm, suffer from gross adiposity, fattening of the hips, thighs, in that particular region, and also sometimes from thyroid disorders and that sort of. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's lunchtime now. May we take an hour from now?